the Instructor Podcast with Terry Cook, talking with leaders, innovators, experts and game changers about what drives them.
Welcome to the Instructor Podcast. As always, I am your awesome host, Terry Cook, and I'm delighted to be here, and even more delighted that you have chosen to listen, because this is a show where I speak to a variety of leaders, experts, innovators, and game changers to look at ways that we can improve your driving school and potentially make you an even more awesome driving instructor. And today, that theme continues because I am joined by Adil Amarsi, who is a copywriter primarily, who has made over $900 million in sales for his clients. And Adil is giving us some top tips on how we can put ourselves out there to get the right customers, the people we actually want to work with, along with some other wonderful advice and suggestions as well. But in this episode, Adil actually turns the tables a little bit and he asks me a question. He throws a bit of a curveball my way, following on from a post that I did earlier that day. He decided to probe my brain a little bit. So the second half of the show is around that side of it, as well as going a little bit of an unexpected deep dive into what our favourite Rocky film is. But there you go. And if you want to let us know what your favourite Rocky film is, then you know where to find me. But just before we dive into the show, I do want to put you all in the direction of Fresh Drivers UK. Now, Fresh Drivers UK are a road safety organisation that is aimed at reducing garage anxiety for new and young drivers, as well as giving people all the information and advice that they need around road safety to do with tyres and other things in that area. I am a big fan of Fresh Drivers UK, in particular the lady behind it, who I won't mention just yet. But excuse the pun, but it feels like a very fresh approach. I highly recommend you go and check these out. I was recently asked to take up a role as an ambassador for them. Delighted to do so because I think these guys are bringing a bit of a fresh approach to the road safety side of things. So go check them out. The best place to find them on Instagram and LinkedIn, search for Fresh Drivers UK. But for now, let's dive into the show. And today on the Instructor Podcast, I am joined by Adil Amarsi. How are we doing, Adil?
I'm doing good. I just realized that your actual name is I Am Groot.
My Zoom etiquette isn't always the best.
Oh, it's the best to me. You're gaining brownie points here like crazy. Like this is 100% a win already for me, so I'm happy.
I aim to please. But no, I'm delighted to have you on the show today, and we've got all kinds of fun stuff to talk about, including, I know you've got something specific you kind of want to ask me about, which is making me slightly apprehensive because the tables are going to be turned, but we'll put a pin in that for now. And I'm going to ask you the question I ask all my guests when they first come on the show, which is the tagline for the show, is that I speak to leaders, experts, innovators, and game changers. And I'm just wondering which one or ones of those do you apply to you? Leader, expert, innovator, game changer.
Okay, I kind of reluctantly fall into all four of them. I'll explain why. So the leadership thing, I don't put a lot of stock into personally for myself. I do not think that I take charge of situations when I need to take charge of them. But if someone else is going to, I will happily. It's like, you go lead. You want to go do this. Me, I'm like, oh shit, I need to do this. Okay, fine, I'll go do this. And then Han Solo the whole thing because, reluctant leader. It's what you do. Wearing a Star Wars t-shirt, you're going to get a lot of Star Wars references today. Not intentionally. So that's one with the leadership kind of thing. So so just so you guys know, I don't consider myself any of these four things. This is just feedback that I get from other humans. I'm like, oh, okay, if you guys keep saying it, then I'm going to believe it. The game changer is actually quite a fun one. So do you know, if you guys go online and look at any website and you guys see like a thing that you can give away your name and email address for, and there's a testimonial or some text about the author or whatever it is, like, hey, this person is amazing, this book changed my life, whatever it was, putting them on free pages, like as we call them as the opt-in pages, just to get the name and email address. That was an innovation of mine. That was something I put together in 2013-14, and we saw like a huge bump in people signing up. So it's now become part of the industry, which is the marketing industry, which is great. An expert, I think doing what I've done for the last 21 years has made me a bit of an expert in my field of advertising and human psychology. And so we got, what was it, game changer, leader, expert, what was the last one?
Innovator, which I think you applied to the email thing. Yeah.
Yes, definitely. The other parts is just I've come up with like ways of coming up with how humans communicate and communication languages with different words and etymology and how it changes. So we're going to be covering one of those with the Keanu method later. I almost said the Keanu Reeves method, but it's like the Keanu method later. Almost misspoke my own thing.
No, I love that. And my two favorite questions on these podcasts are always that one. And then when I ask people for the ultimate driving song at the end, because they get the best responses. And I like the word expert. I say this quite a lot on the show, but I love the word expert. I'm a fan of that word, but it always seems to divide people. There's a lot of people that rebel against that. Who are you to call yourself an expert type of thing? And others that fully embrace it. But I love that response. But I'm going to dive straight in with this question then, because I kind of messaged you a little bit about this yesterday, and it was something I learned actually. So you have made over $900 million for your clients. You are fast approaching $1 billion, which when I
Yeah.
say those words, my mind can't comprehend those numbers, by the way. But that's what you've done for your clients in those 21 years, like you said. So when I'm presuming you hear this, when you will hear small businesses, i.e., driving schools, that will
Mm-hmm.
use things like copywriting's irrelevant, it doesn't apply to me because I'm a driving instructor or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
How would you respond to that?
It does apply to you because you have to sell. I just wanted to correct one thing. So while I've been in the industry for 21 years, mostly unconscious because I was like 12 when I started, I went pro at 18. So the nearly billion is in the 15-year period point, which is wonderful. I'm not even counting the other stuff because I think the only person I wrote for was my dad. That was every so often. But back to the actual question, which was if a driving instructor said to me, this doesn't really matter, I'm like, well, do you want customers? Yes, I want customers. Then it matters. Like that is as simply as it is. It's funny, I had a conversation with someone very, very recently about the ideas of the differences of copywriting, and I didn't realize until I was on that show there are 5 different variations of what we consider copywriter. There's content writers who have recently, in the last 6 years, learned and figured out how to write good emails and sales messages. Then you have the brand people who are like, they do direct line ads and stuff like that. It's like, come to my driving school, and then just like have the driving school here at whatever school, whatever it is. It's like that's a little bit better than like the original stuff where like a McDonald's ad is more brand based. It's like brand recognition versus advertising. Then you have the direct response people, which are, in the nice way they put it, is they grab you by the throat and tell you why you need to use them as a driving instructor. They're like, here's the reasons why we have a high pass rate and all this, that, the other, and here's all the things that we do differently and what we do. And it's all benefit driven, which is wonderful. And then you have the 4th step, which is the story sellers. And the story sellers is something I was a part of from like nearly 10 years ago, where so many people, including myself, were like trying to figure out how to best tell a story that ultimately leads to a sale in a way that's ethical and true, because authentic stories sell way better than fake ones. Long term. Short term, they get their asses handed to them. But the thing is, over a longer period of time, people like you more and they actually refer business to you and they stay in business longer. Which is really nice. And the 5th level is what we call Grandmaster Copywriter or A-listers. And at that level, what you're doing is essentially, every aspect of advertising there is under the sun. Now, as someone that's a driving instructor, the thing that really matters to you is like level 3. Just to get good at writing ads that basically get people to say yes. Because the reality is, why would someone go with you and not someone else? The reason isn't so much to do with your personality, because you can have an absolutely fantastic personality. You can be the best teacher in the world. But if no one knows about you, if no one is referring business to you, it doesn't matter. So that's where advertising comes in. That's where copywriting comes in. It basically allows you to differentiate yourself enough from the next person to get the customers coming in so they can go through your driving school. They can pay you. They can get good results. And most importantly, it kind of balances out the universe a little bit, in my opinion.
I think that as an instructor, and I think I speak for a lot of instructors when I say this, it never feels like sales. And like that was the first point you made, you need to sell. And it never feels that way. But when you step back and look at it, it is what we're doing. We're selling our services. but I think it doesn't feel that way, which, maybe is where a lot of instructors come unstuck. But I think that if you look at how it applies to us, we've got us websites, we've got social media, we've got blog posts, maybe not so much with the emails and that side of it. And then there's obviously, the video side of it as well. But
Yeah.
I think that the websites, the social media, the blog posts, they're kind of the key points. And you mentioned the story side of it there. That's something that I'm quite interested in, and that's where I've done a little bit dabbling around
Yeah.
copy before. It's that the story side I find fascinating, and I'm going to give you a quick example. I'd be interested in your thoughts on this.
Please.
And this is going back to 2019. I'd seen a post from a driving school that said, uh, can't remember exactly, but it was something along the lines of, if you come for lessons with us, we will not be parked up at the side of the road talking. We will do a 1 hour lesson and you'll be driving for 58 minutes. There'll be no discussion, just driving. And it got a lot of interaction and it got a lot of engagement, a lot of likes, that kind of stuff. And I can remember reading it and going, as a learner, I would never go with that school. I hated that. And I wasn't criticizing them, but I'm thinking from my perspective, that's not what I would want. I'm going to write the opposite post. I'm going to write what I do as an instructor, which is we'll do as much driving as is appropriate as you want. And if you want to be pulled up at the side of the road for 40 minutes, discussing everything we've just done and educating and learning at the side of the road, then we go and practice it for 20 minutes. Great, we'll do that. And it got equal, if not more, amount of traction than the other post did. And I just found that fascinating that two people are essentially telling two different stories or putting two different things out there. So how important is it, do you think, to try and put across as best you can what you do to get the customer that you want?
Okay, I'm going to touch on one other point before we jump on this one. The best selling in the world is just having a conversation because it's no pressure. Like, I don't need to convince you to do anything. I just need to have a conversation with you. And if you like me as a person, I said, hey, I fulfill an exact thing that you need to do. You can pay me for it. You're like, great, jobs are good, and let's get going. It's so simple it is. So you guys are selling, but just change the term selling in your head from like, oh, I've got to do stuff. It's more like, I'll just have a conversation with people. That's all you're doing. Just start conversations really easily. And the second thing is it's about who you're applying that to. Like, I can think of someone that would love the 58 minutes of driving. I actually know them very, very well, and they're a dear friend of mine because they love they love being behind the wheel. It's just their thing. They've been learning how to drive since they were young. When we were 18, they literally got their driver's license like 3 days into being 18 because they'd spent so much time learning how to drive from the time they were 15 and 16. Not always legally, but they actually were just doing it because they just wanted to get behind the wheel. They actually could because they saved up, they went and got it. I think it was 3 days is how long it took them for actually to go from their first lesson to being expedited directly to like, yeah, just go get your driver's license. You already know what you're doing. You've already passed your theory. You just need to just get this now sorted. We don't need 10 lessons. There's a bit of a legend for it. But at the same time, I know people who are so anxious they can't be on the road for that long. Like they can only be on the road for short spaces of time because for them they need to have the back and forth. So you got to know who you want to talk to and be the instructor that just speaks to them. So if you're like the 58-minute person, probably attracted all the right people that they were looking for. Whereas you wrote your post and you attracted all the people that you were looking for. Doesn't mean either one is wrong. Just means they're different styles of teaching.
Yeah. And it's interesting you say that because something I speak about a lot on here is that I never work with anyone that I don't like. Because I'm stuck in a car with people 2 hours at a time. I don't want that in my day if I dislike them. That doesn't mean I'm going to love everything about them. It just means that it's got to be someone I want to work with. And that filtering starts from me with what I put into the world. So the fact that I, in the past, have spoke about being an ally to the LGBT plus community, the fact that I shared stuff around Black Lives Matter, the fact that I was following the guidance around COVID and stuff like that, it meant that if I come across someone that was homophobic, for example, they're not coming to me because I've already filtered them out. Because why would they come to someone that's embracing that? And one of the things I see a lot in our industry is instructors complaining an awful lot about the people they work with. So
Yeah.
is there any sort of advice you could give us that could help us filter out those people that come to us and pre-filter almost?
Yes. So this is going to sound really counterintuitive to the part I'm going to say because I don't want it to be, but I need to speak to everyone here. Um, there is a huge shift more towards liberal values in most businesses. And for some people, that is just not who you are. Not that you have anything wrong with anyone or whatever it is. You're just kind of like, this is not the type of person I just naturally gel with. We have different opposing views, and you're human. You're allowed to have your own views. That's all I'm saying. What I'm saying is, at that point, don't front as if you're a different bit, like different type of business, and don't even mention it. Don't even go into like, I don't work with trans people. I don't work with blah blah, whatever it is. No one cares. You know, it's not a huge thing. If you don't do it, just say like if someone comes to you for driving help, try and find something you get along with them. But if you don't, just walk away from it and be like, actually, you know what? I have the right person for you. It's not me. I'll send you along to the right person. This makes a great deal for you because you can actually get into if you're a very conservative person, reach across like the aisle, so to say, and find a very liberal driving instructor. So if you get any liberal people come to you, you can be like, hey, listen, you can go to that person over there, and that's great. And they can send you like a commission, or they can send you some business back where they've dealt with someone that is not in their liking. Like, hey, you should go work with Steve. Steve would get along with you. It's just a way of building referrals. But let's just take that away from what it is and go with how do you filter people out? Well, talk about what it is that you want to talk about. Because some people don't care about your politics, your gender, the ideas that you have. They just don't care. They're like, look, you're a driving instructor. I'm here to learn how to drive. That's all I need. You can be okay with that. If that's the type of person you are, where you're like, I don't really want to talk about my politics ideas or whatever it is, great. You've got a perfect match made in heaven. You can even make a whole ad about that, which is want to have a driving instructor that literally just sits there and teaches you how to drive and helps you get through your exams so you have a great time. Don't care about my politics, nor do I want to know about yours, but we actually have a great time of just being respectful to one another. Superb. Let's get on a call and see if we actually are a fit or whatever it is the next process would be. Because the reality is you're filtering out. If you're someone that is on the opposite side, very much like um, you could talk about all the stuff that's there. I follow this, I do this. You're basically showing who you are out loud and attracting people to you. If you're the type of person that doesn't naturally do that, then talk about what it is that you do. Don't talk about what your politics are. In fact, as I just said, you can say what your politics aren't and just say, I don't want to talk about it, but I want to help you. That's it. Here's what my students have said. There's a bunch of ways to actually tell people how good of a driving school you are, how good of an instructor you are without going into personalization of ideation. You can have something on there that just says, while I am tolerant of others and who they are and what they do, I absolutely am not tolerant of these types of people. Because again, I was going to say the COVID thing really divided a lot of people down the middle. Because there are some people that were exempt from wearing masks, like myself, which I got a lot of evil eye from. Everyone was like, "Oh, you're not wearing a mask." I was like, "Yeah, because I legally can't, and it's actually bad for my health to wear a mask, because of like how my respiration has been for the last couple of years." They're like, "Oh, okay, fine, fair enough." But at the same time, I don't hold anyone else to that. Like if you told me like Adil, I can't be a driving instructor unless you wear a mask. I'm like, well, I can't wear a mask. I'm gonna have to find a different driving instructor, but nothing against you. Simple as.
It was a fascinating time for me actually because I remember, we were during lockdowns, we weren't allowed to teach, so there was like 4 month period with no lessons. When we came back, I messaged all my students and said, "Look, I'm wearing a mask. It's stated that we need to wear masks in car. Do you have any
Mm-hmm.
reasons why you can't?" I think there were 2 or 3 that messaged me back and said, "Actually, yeah, this." And I'm like, "How about you bring a mask to car, we try, and if it's not working at the first 5 minutes, don't wear it." And they're all like, "Yeah,
Yeah.
no problem, let's try that." And
Yep.
you said the word you used was conversation. And I hadn't put 2 and 2 together until I was saying it then. It's like, that's what it was. It was a conversation. And we came to something that worked for both of us. Perhaps if I'd have had a medical condition where I wanted that person to wear a mask, I might have had to say, no, you need to wear a mask because of my medical condition. And if you can't, you'll have to go somewhere else, no hard feelings. But it's that conversation that you were talking about, isn't it?
Exactly. If you're kind of people, believe it or not, things just work out. They really do. People are way less dickish than you realize.
Yeah.
They can get very hard. Like the way I look at it is most of my friends are extremely out there. I have friends that are very politically conservative. I have friends that are extremely liberal. And I have some of my best friends that spring along the entire spectrum of what it is. I live in the middle, which I know people go, how could you live in the middle? I actually do live in the middle. Because my rule is, well, I'm not going to say that, well, actually, the C word. I'm just going to use that one because I know it can offend some people. Don't be a C word, an a-hole, or a dick. And essentially, we'll all get along. Happy times. Great. I won't judge you. You won't judge me. We're all good and well. Everyone each to their own. Where I have a problem is if you start telling me what I need to believe and why, then we have an issue. But other than that, I'm like, nah, as long as no one's getting hurt and everyone's happy, we're fine.
I'm the same. I'm also amused by which words you choose to filter out there. But don't be a dick is generally a motto I try and live my life by. But I even use that kind of stuff to the podcasting stuff as well, because, and I'm going to use you as the example here. When I first got in touch with you about coming on the show, and I think I actually said this to you, every time we spoke, you would ask how I was. And the way
Yeah,
you phrased it, just on a message, seemed genuine. And I always try and I don't always say it because I'm too excited to speak to the person. But whenever I say it, I try and sound genuine. And I remember saying to you, this is just really nice that you're saying that and actually want to know.
yeah,
And I think you kind of cotton on quite quickly the people that you like. So even if someone goes through that filter and you put on your socials or your website, whatever, just by those messages, you can filter them out quite easily in a lot of
quickly.
cases. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's so this is nothing to do with what we're talking about, but it has 100% to do with human behavior because I actually picked up a lot of what I know about how to write advertising and selling from my dating life. Um, I will give you guys the greatest pickup line of all time. It's the uncontested champion of conversation. It's my favorite thing in the world to do. It's being genuinely sincere, as you just said, in asking how another human is doing. I mean, seriously, if I'm anywhere, I will, hey, how's your day going? Or, hey, how are you? Just smile at them and genuinely mean it. Because most times people will either give you the good or fine, but if you're genuine about it, they're like, I'm having a good day, but I'm actually feeling a little bit sad about stuff. Oh, what's going on? So and so.
Um,
Like, that's great. How about you? I'm good, thanks.
I mean, it worked on me. I was putting your hands after those first couple of messages, so there you go. In fact, I'm going to tell try and make it brief story because we're probably going to touch back on this a little bit
Oh,
later on, but
it's okay.
it's relevant to what you're saying now, which is I think back to last year when my life was a mess, and there were two people um, that phrased things in a very certain way. One was a chap called Robin Bates who's been on the show before. I think you know Robin
Great
actually.
guy.
Yeah.
I do.
And I was having a chat with him and he said, how are you doing, Terry? And I went, oh, I'm all right. He went, no, how are you doing? And it meant, I'm like, oh, he actually wants to know. And it just had this brilliant conversation because he asked it twice. And then another chap a bit later on in the year, Dan Meredith, did a similar thing in
Oh,
that
I know Dan.
great bloke. Well, they're both great blokes. Love them both. They had a massive impact on my life.
Dan's a former student of mine as well.
All right. Well, there you go.
Yeah, good guy. Love the guy, by the way. Absolute genius when it comes to this kind of stuff. But
We,
yeah, very genuine in asking how people are doing.
yeah, we all live under the Dan tree, I think. So he was having a phone call and I said, look, I don't want to talk about my life at the minute, Dan. And he went, no, that's fine, mate. How's your life? I'm like, oh, you bastard. Yeah, kind of told him. But again, it does you good. And even bringing it back to you, and again, we'll touch on this shortly, I think, but the message you sent me today was a really interesting message because you didn't ask if we could talk about the thing later. You told me we were going to talk about the thing later.
Yeah,
And it's taking ownership of those conversations sometimes. And we can do that on lessons, we can do that in marketing, and we can do it one-on-one. But I'm going to steer away from that now because there is a specific question I want to ask you.
damn. I was gonna like dive right into that. I was like, that's a perfect time to dive in, but we'll keep it later. We'll keep people on edge.
Believe it or not, there is a very, very loose structure. I'm trying to keep to. There's bullet points, and like generally 80% of them get ignored. But either way, the be interested in your thoughts on this. In that, I'm going to give you a brief outline of our industry, and then ask you a question about it. Because at the minute, there is a massive backlog on driving tests, with people waiting
Yes.
6, 7 months plus. There's a huge demand for lessons. because of the backlog of tests. There's a lot of despondent students out there. There's a lot of despondent driving instructors out there. Morale is very low. And also, there's a lot of students that are taking up private practice because rather than having driving lessons for 6 months for them out only free, they're spreading them out. Some doing private practice as well. So if you was a driving instructor at the minute, what sort of things would you be talking about? Whether, on sort of social media and blogs and that side of it, because we don't necessarily want to be advertising, if that makes sense.
Okay. Because wait, are you guys just way too busy right now, or not
Yes.
at all?
Most obviously, I'm not speaking for every single instructor, but on the large, we've got waiting lists that can go on for months. We're getting inquiries daily.
Okay.
It's a great position to be in.
Yeah, there's a great place to be. There's three solutions. Number one, if you're like, I have way too many people, I don't know what to do here, up your prices. It's a great way of actually passing that on to someone else at that price range. Just raise your prices. The right people who are desperate to work with you will just end up paying you. And I say desperate in like a non-horrible way. It's just like, I really need to work with you. I'm like committed to work with you. Great. That's one way. The second way, which is a little bit more long term, is just tell people what's going on. Like inform them, guys. There's like a whole thing that's going on. It's crisis right now. We're booked up for months. I know that you're actually in place, but I can tell you right now, everyone is getting booked up. The best thing that you can do is get your place reserved now for months down the line. So once we've got everything in place, we can move forward with it. What's actually happening with the driving crisis anyway? Like what's happening there? Why is there such a backlog of tests?
Oh dear. We're going to make this 2 hour show now, just so you're aware.
Amazing.
The Basically over COVID, because there was the lockdowns, there were no driving tests going ahead. So
Mhm.
everything got put on hold, and then when they first brought it back, they cancelled all the tests over lockdowns. So when they first brought tests back, they just opened up on a Monday, and then everyone dived in to try and book these tests, and there was a massive queue, and it was like you get the online waiting queue, and there were like
Yeah.
30,000 people in this queue, and you could just see yourself going down. Then you get to like 10,000, there'll be no more tests available. And it's basically not improved since then, to the extent that I had the DVSA, the Driving Vehicle Standards Agency, on my podcast last year in
Hmm.
August, who assured me the waiting list, the waiting time would be down to 10 weeks by February. And it's still at 6 months, well, between 4 and 6 months across the country. So yeah, it's not
Yeah.
great.
Okay, so under that, because if there's nothing that can be done, let's just say there's nothing that can be
Yeah.
done. Um, Under that same thing is you can actually all band together and actually write a very nice letter if you want, and actually see what can happen, or create a subdivision if that needs to happen. If that doesn't happen, what you do now is literally, as I said, raise your prices and just fill up your calendar for the rest of the year. Like that is the best thing you can do. Get a payment up front so it's actually taken care of, and there's a deposit because people later down the year may not have the funds, but right now is the perfect time for them to actually get it. So at that time they might need your actual help, which is great. Um, there's just a lot of great things that you guys can do, but those are the ones that really just come to mind on how to solve that problem. Like, rarely, if there's an oversaturation problem and there's like just a backlog of stuff, the best you can do is up your prices. So you work, if it's one of those things like, look, I've got too many people here, up the prices. I don't have enough people right now. Go to someone that has a problem like that and be like, hey, are you overloaded? Can I take a percentage of these off of you? What can we do? How can we make this right? Because the reality is, you're a driving instructor, you know this. I don't think you're going to say no to another driving instructor who is as good, that can help out, that you're like, you know what? You don't have any work right now. Let me help you out with this.
Definitely. I think just as an alternative from me, I'd be interested in your thoughts on this. Is I think that for social
Please.
media in particular, I think it's a really good opportunity for us to put almost solutions across and varied ideas. So, for example, the one I talk about is the way you can look at this. So, if your driving test is 3 months away, you can look at it from the perspective. So, I'm talking to learner drivers now. Your perspective could be, "Oh, God, my driving test 3 months away," or it can be, "I've got 3 months to learn." And what
Yeah.
else can you do in that 3 months? Could we do motorway lessons, or could you go and do city centre driving, or multi-story car park driving? And you can put other stuff into your package and advertise additional stuff. And I think that
Yeah.
there's we don't it's a really good opportunity to experiment as well with other things, because if something goes wrong, we've still got the custom there.
Exactly. Well, that's one way I wasn't thinking about it, but that's a great thing because you can actually package in different things and charge a different price, which is fine. And again, really give them examples of what they can do in 90 days. Look, your driving test is 90 days away. Um, Instead of booking in like a full, okay, you need 10 more lessons, you can just say, look, you're a very good driver. You have these areas. Here's what I would suggest that you do is we meet up twice a month. We do twice a month just testing, and then right before you go in for your test, we do like 2 sessions back to back to make sure that you got everything nailed down, and then you just basically go in. Why this is going to help you in these reasons and ways, and this is how it's proven to be. I mean, you choose the regularity of what they want to do, but like I said, if you have a lot of students and you don't have the time, which is where your time pour in, you might have that could be a thing. Um, it's a great way of actually doing so. And again, going back to like you can share the load, but also you can really space out how you want to have these like special lessons for people as well. They can be a little bit more, or they can be a little bit less. They can be a package deal, whatever it is that you want to do. But one other thing that you said about social media that comes to mind is you can literally go on social media and suggest solutions, as you said, but solutions geared around how to get around this whole driving backlog thing. Because you never know who's listening or watching. They might be like, that's a great idea. Why didn't I just think of that? And then they run it through. And then say it's theirs with like a million other policies and tiny little niggles here, there, and everywhere. And then eventually they get there. And no one gets credit, but still there.
Like it. I want to ask you about two specific things around copy. So the first one, I was listening to another couple of podcasts you were on, and you were talking about how you don't like the words learn and teach used within
Yes.
copy. And
Yes.
I was just wondering, so two-part question, I suppose, why? And second part, what alternatives would you use potentially?
I'm going to add in a third question, which is qualifier. There's a qualifying, like who qualifies for this? I'm going to answer that one first. So learn and teach don't really work with entrepreneurial type personalities. Like the ones that are very much like, I like to do my own thing. Because if you look at an entrepreneurial type personality, we're mostly rebellious little buttholes. We just are. Like, it's just how our brain is geared. It's like, I know what I'm doing because I know what I'm doing. We don't fit inside a cog of a machine. We end up wanting to create the machine or live outside of it. It's kind of our thing. So those words don't work. But the average human, the average person doesn't mind learning and teaching because the environment that you're in is learning and teaching for driving instruction. It kind of comes within the part and package. It's, oh, you're going to a driving school. It's all within the same lexicon of words that people are used to. So that's okay. But the reason why I don't like them, and I'll actually go into this because it's very relevant if you want to try this out, the reason I don't like them is because for about 10 years of my life, I put people through private MRI machines and I read their brain while I was actually going through copy with them. So I'd read copy and look at their brain scans, see what lit up and what didn't. And the words learn and teach routinely failed the test. Not always, but routinely. It was just like, I think it was like 8 out of 10 times. It was like an 80% time. It just didn't work. And the reason being is not only is learn and teach factored into you doing things and there's a movement, yada, yada, yada. The other reason is actually to do with schooling. I don't know about you, but I do not want to go back to school. I just did not want to go back. If I had to go back and relive the bullying and all the ridiculousness and the clickiness and to be fair, I'm 33, so like schooling for me wasn't too terrible per se. But the generation after where it's like, okay, there's social bullying even more like digitally. Back then it was like just the playground and maybe another school. But I don't want to go back to that. So because of that, your brain is subconsciously reaching into the things like, what else was I taught? What else was learning? Well, I was being talked down to because as a teacher and I'm a student and I was learning things which were painful because I didn't like them. This is pain I need to avoid for a moment. And that's why you'll see some people not take action when everything is correct. It's because of little words like learn and teach. And alternatives to that are discover, uncover, reveal, show, tell, share. These are all like great alternatives to have.
No, I like it. It's something that I'd not really considered before. And then when I thought about it after, like, yeah, do you know what? I don't particularly like those words.
Yeah.
I might
So
experiment with that a little bit myself.
Yeah, like a little thing that you can just say. What we do differently here is that we show you how to take control of the vehicle, to actually have a command over what you're doing, and to just simply have fun. As your instructor, because that's okay, being an instructor is okay. As your instructor, I can help you do this, that, the other. And what you're going to discover is the joy of driving, and you're going to really feel everything that goes through. Like, again, one of the trifectas of advertising I like, I love that work for this industry is feel, felt, and found. And you can use case studies. It's like Sheila came to me, or like James came to me, or Adil came to me, and what they were feeling nervous before they first got behind the wheel. They didn't know where the brake was. They couldn't switch gears. They couldn't do anything. They felt so lost. But as they were driving over time, what they felt was a sense of freedom, a sense of achievement. They actually overcame something, and their body basically adapted. The motor neurons in the brain fired correctly, where within weeks they went from having to look at the gearbox when they were shifting gears to just looking at the road and not even worrying about how they were shifting gears. And now what they feel is a sense of accomplishment, and whatever it is. You can just really draw this out, and you can basically build a whole email or sales letter or like advertisement around that one case study on social media, because feel, felt, found really works, and people actually port over and they actually want to buy from you because now they have an idea what it is.
Well, I must admit, when you mentioned the word discovery before, something lit up in my brain. So I think discovery works for me. But it's
Yeah,
interesting when you're
discover.
saying that story about the student because um, when as instructors, our single biggest marketing tool, I believe, is the past pictures. You know, when someone passes and you've got that picture up there, I could just put a picture up
Hmm.
of someone stood next to my car saying their past, and I will get inquiries as a result of that. But what I
Yeah.
found is when I put words with that, and I actually started doing it last year, I think it was, where it's now a case of so and so's story. This is what they
Hmm.
went through. This is how I felt. This is what they struggled with. This is what they achieved. That gets a lot more traction, a lot more response. So it's interesting you say that. And we'll be back with more from Adil in just a moment because we're taking a brief pause in the show because this is the point where I usually give a shout out to the latest sign-ups to the Instructor Podcast Premium. However, this week there hasn't been any, making Terry a very sad boy indeed. So I will take this opportunity to tell you a little bit about what you can find if you decide to enhance your CPD with a subscription to the Instructor Podcast Premium. So first of all, there are over 100 exclusive trainings available for you to listen to and even on occasion watch as well. From everything we've got standard checks to coaching to developing your business to mindfulness, all that kind of cool stuff. And all that is available within the £10 a month tier. However, if you wanted to upgrade and sign up to the interactive tier for £22 a month, you get all that awesome stuff, as well as the opportunity to watch and join in several podcasts being recorded every month, including the most recent one, which is fast becoming one of mine and my premium members' favourite shows, which is the episode dissection. So I pick out a collection of episodes, I let them vote for their favourite, and then we do a deep dive into the guest and the topic around the episode. And just recently we had the amazing Shabnam Raja join us, and some of my premium members joined in with that show as well, with some lovely feedback on that. And I should just mention that anyone that signs up to either of those tiers on the Instructor podcast gets some exclusive discounts. So you'd get a discount with Bob Morton's Client-Centered Learning, with Go Roadie, with the Guild of Mindful Drivers, with the ADI PDI Doctor, and with Coaching for Geeks. And if you are considering signing up or you want to find out more, head over to www.theinstructorpodcast.com or use the link in the show notes or drop me a message and I'll happily have a conversation with you. But for now, let's dive back into the show. The second one, and I think the last maybe specific copywriting question, because this is something I struggle to do. I have to consciously make myself do it, but I'm getting better. One sentence paragraphs.
I hop on about this like crazy.
I'm just going to say that then, let you talk. One sentence paragraphs. Talk to me about one sentence paragraphs.
Okay, so the reason they work is because the human brain can't, like, okay, if I sent you a sentence paragraph, which is about yay big of text, which is, quite a decent chunk, would you read every word of it?
Possibly. I think will be the answer. Possibly, depending on what it was, but you'd have to read it to find out. Some maybe not.
Right. Most people can't.
Yeah.
Their brain just won't do it. Or they'll skim read.
Yep.
Now, if you have a one sentence paragraph, you're skim reading, but you're skim reading a lot less information, which means you're retaining more. Because it's a complete bite. It's the equivalent of actually, this is the best way. This is a new way that I can equate it to. One sentence paragraphs are like taking small bites of a really big steak or like a really big meal. You're taking small bites versus me saying to you, eat this entire like portion of food in one sit, just very quickly, like devour it rather than actually taking your time to digest everything. And that's basically a big difference. So in doing so, it also makes you a much better communicator because you're able to say things concisely. It's like, can you turn a whole 3 sentence paragraph into a 1 sentence paragraph? Yes, you can. Okay, here's how you do it. Done. Okay, I can say that more concisely. Because the idea of long form sales copy is people think that you have to write really long copy. No, you just have to hit every viable objection or point there is, but be concise in how you answer that because you can really go on a little bit. But this is why I encourage people to finish writing an advertisement, wait a day, and then read it out loud, and they'll see where the natural stops are. They'll see exactly if they're talking too much, if they're actually staying where they need to, and they'll be like, okay, this sounds about good, great. I'll know what to edit out, and then they can actually move on from there.
No, I love it. It's I'm not a copywriter. I never pretend to be, but I've done a little bit of digging around it, and I like to give myself the little challenges where I'll do that Facebook post. I'm like, that paragraph's quite long. How can I shorten that?
Yeah.
But yeah, I like doing it with the hooks as well. That first line, I do sometimes think, how can I get people to read this? Or sometimes I'll put a picture of Rocky underneath a certain post, and that makes everyone read it, which is potentially a lovely little segue into
Yeah.
something that I
I want
think
to
you
ask
wanted
you.
to ask
Yeah.
me about. Yeah.
Yeah, I really did. So first of all, can we just like point out what is the worst Rocky movie in your opinion?
Um, I mean, God, first of all, I don't think that is a bad Rocky movie.
There is one bad Rocky movie.
No,
Okay, that's just
you're
one.
talking Rocky Five, aren't you?
Of course, everyone knows
No,
this, but
no.
I will say this: Rocky Five is the only one that makes me cry. There's one scene in Rocky Five that will always make me cry, but I'm not a fan of the rest of the movie.
Um, Look, clearly it's not as
But
good
go
as
on.
the rest. It's not as good. You've got Rocky One and Rocky Two, which you can't give them both sort of 10 out of 10 because Rocky is the best of the lot. So it'd be like 10 and 9. 3 and 4 are just classic cheese 80s type of films. Um, Rocky Five, if you'd maybe say 4 and 5, 3 and 4 are an 8 out of 10, and I'd give Rocky Five a 7. And then you've got Rocky Balboa, which is
Was
I
amazing.
yes, took me by surprise completely. I think I spent the first 20 minutes of that film thinking I was going to find it atrocious, and then just got completely absorbed into it. And by the end, I
Oh,
was bawling my eyes out.
it's such a good movie. Okay, let's just put it this way. So my order is I actually have Rocky 3 and 4 above 1 and 2. Like I love 1 and 2. I grew up on the Rocky movies. 1 and 2 were amazing, but 3 and 4, like especially like Rocky 4 with the Russian, easily my favorite. The montage for that was wonderful. Hearts on Fire. Are you kidding me? I'm all about that. Then you got Rocky 3. The whole Clubber Lang Mr. T thing was wonderful. Rocky 2 actually trumps Rocky 1 for me because Rocky 1 was really like Rocky 1 is a masterpiece. Don't get me wrong, it is a masterpiece. It's very highly regarded in many other areas, but in my list, I put it below 2 for one simple reason. 2 kind of gave me the complete feeling of like this is the redemption arc. You see him really go out there and push himself. It goes to another level. The first one is this is my shot. I'm going to try and make the best of it, which is everyone loves the underdog story. Now, we will say all 4 of these really rank highly. Like I'm talking 8, like 9 and 10 level, all of them. I don't have a rating system for which one goes in the 9s and 10s. They're just in that pantheon. 5 is like a 6 out of 10 for me. Like, it's a real plummet off the cliff. And then Rocky Balboa. Rocky Balboa is like that's a 9. That's an 8.5 or a 9 for me. Just so well done to actually get Mason the Lion Dixon, aka Tavares. Is it Tavares? I can't. Antonio Tavares. To get him to actually do this, to be part of it, was wonderful. Like, sorry, not Tavares, Antonio Tava, the boxer. To get him to be a part of it and actually punch Stallone, and he took the punch, is never a thing. So we're getting off the point here. The reason I bring this around, because I saw that post, was simply because you said something about almost getting back to 100%, getting back to full capability of who you are and what you're able to do. I've been trying, and it's a selfish reason I'm asking, I've been trying to figure out how to do that with myself, because I've been coming out my own thing, even though I am as good as I am, I'm not the best I could be. Like, I know what's above. How did you get back? Like, what were the steps that you took?
I need to touch back on the Rocky ranking for a second.
Please go for it.
I would never argue with anyone over their Rocky rankings because I love all the films. So whatever order you put them in, I'd be happy with. But I will just say, I think the reason I love Rocky 1 the most is because the exact opposite to you, I think. It's because, and I'm spoiling a film from the 70s when I say this, so if you haven't watched Rocky, take a pause.
It's 50 years ago. They was,
yes.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's 50,
50.
And again,
50.
50 years.
Making me feel old. But yes, he didn't win. And that's why I love it. Because every film, they always finish with a thing winning. And he won what he needed to win without winning the fight. And I absolutely adore that. And however, Rocky 2 does give us the immortal line, "You're idiot."
So
that
I
one.
did it, yeah. And again, but the other thing as well, I was going to say, it's the exact same reason. It's why I love Rocky 1, because he doesn't win. But that's why I love Rocky 2 more, because he does finally. It's like you finally made it. You made it over the hill, and you see what happened. It's yeah. Okay, we're not going to talk anymore about Rocky because we can be here for like hours talking about this. But go on.
You can come back on season 6 and we'll finish off on Creed. The way that I
Don't even get me
came back.
started. Creed is amazing.
Yeah. No, Terry, driving instructor podcast. The way I came back, the way I dealt with it. So, all right. So I'll be brutally honest here for you and everyone listening. People may not know exactly what occurred. So the start of last year, so January 2022, I had COVID, and it affected me for a few months. I was never in hospital or anything like that, but I wasn't. I was quite bad for like 3 or 4 weeks, and then it affected me. So I couldn't get back to full-time work. So obviously, being self-employed, losing income, back to full-time work in March. In April, I got sciatica. Never felt pain like it. Never been as crippled. Couldn't work. Couldn't podcast. All that kind of stuff. That eased off around the end of May, early June. In June, I had to say goodbye to my dog, who was also my
Oh,
best mate, and that's the thing that broke me.
yeah.
In July, my wife asked for a divorce. In September, which was unexpected, by the way. In September, I moved out from my family home to my flat that I'm in now. In October, I turned 40, and in November, my sciatica came back. And that was 2022. And there were points in that year where I am going to put a slight trigger warning here. So anyone that doesn't want to listen to this talk, please feel free to turn off or skip forward. But I was never actually suicidal, but there was many a time when I didn't give a toss. I didn't
Yeah.
care. I don't think I cared enough to be suicidal. I think that's probably a good way of phrasing it. But I didn't care if I woke up the next day. There were times like that. But the
Yeah.
only thing that I was able to hang on to was the fact that I knew at some point I would care again. I knew that. So I wanted
Yeah.
to look after that Terry. Because in November, I would not have given a toss if our business had gone under, if I'd lost my flat or anything like that. But I knew that, I don't know, February, March, April, whatever, I would care again. So I was not willing to let myself down for when I cared again.
Yeah.
And it was about end of February, early March when I started getting that feeling back of, I want to do this again. And I've never been as grateful or as proud of anything I've done in my life that I managed to keep going. Now, I kept going at the bare minimum. I did what I needed to do to keep everything afloat. My health, physical and mental, the business, bills, did what I needed to do, the absolute bare minimum. I've never been as grateful for that. So when I was going through all that, it was all about looking after future Terry. That's all I cared about. It was the only thing. Where I'm at now, probably around about 80, 90%. And it's just, I'm thinking of future Terry. At the minute, I have scattered all over this house post-it notes. And the post-it note says hashtag Terry45, because that's my next significant goal when I'm 45, 5 years' time. That's when I'm going to be buying property. That's when I'm going to be in this finance. That's where I've set all my goals for. So everything is now set towards that. That's my goal. I don't care about tomorrow. Don't care about today. I'm doing today and tomorrow for that Terry 45. And that's the only way that I've been able to get through, and the only way I can really get through now without slipping back into those habits. So not does that answer the question you asked?
That does. That does massively answer the question. It's actually giving me a huge insight, which is essentially think about you of tomorrow rather than the you of today.
Yeah.
Because that's something that's huge. And just to share, like as I said, I'm going through something very similar. So I was looking for that exact answer. It was like, how the hell did you get back? Because that's where I feel like I'm slipping. Except I'm not at 80 and 90. I feel like I'm still at 25, 30% of like feeling myself again. Yeah.
The other thing is, and not everyone can do this. I appreciate I'm very, very lucky that I was able to do this. But if you've got one or two people in your life that you can just latch onto, and I mentioned two of them before, in particular Robin Bates,
Yeah.
I knew that I could. You hear the phrase 3 a.m. friend. You've
Yeah.
got someone you can ring up or contact at 3 a.m. and if they need you, they'll help you.
Yeah.
Even though I didn't use him, really, knowing that you've got someone there is really helpful.
Massively.
So for where you are now, like you said, around that 25-30% mark,
Yeah.
you focus on tomorrow, focus on whatever the end dream is, whether we've got that house with a moat around it or whatever. And that's the only thing that matters. You're looking after Adil for whatever that period of time is, whatever that goal is, that you go into complete selfish mode. No one
Yeah.
else, nothing else matters. And by doing that, you'll potentially find that you can actually then accommodate other things and more people, and also accepting that this is really fucking hard sometimes. Really hard. And sometimes you just got to give yourself a break and accept, I need to lie on the sofa today. I need to
Yeah.
not do work today. I need to, in my case, I need to not be a vegan today, you know. And weirdly, when I give myself that break, I then find it fine to do it. So if you use that vegan example, if I ever say to myself, I'm feeling too many restrictions, I'm going to eat a steak today, I'll go to Asda and won't buy a steak because I'm not feeling the
Yep.
restriction. I'll buy something else instead that I enjoy more. Weirdly, that, but yeah, I don't want to repeat myself too much, but those the acceptance that life is hard and sometimes stuff's going to go wrong, and
Yeah.
the finding one thing that works for you to latch onto and just focus on that, and that's the only thing that matters. And having people around you, and look, I'm open. You want to contact me at 3 in the morning? I mean, to be fair, my phone's off. It's not going to happen, but you
You're not gonna
contact
wake
me
me up, but still.
yeah, contact me when my phone's on. I'll answer.
Yeah, thanks, man. I appreciate it. And again, it's one of those things that it's really good to have because I do have some of those people in my life, which again, like, yeah, we'll discuss some other stuff off air as well. But that's really, really cool. So I really appreciate you taking the time to answer my question on your own show, which I hope will help more people as well.
Really, and do you know what? The other thing, it's rocky. That's what it is. You look at the
Yeah.
story Izaki went through, you're tying it back into your copywriting. You know, God, this is going to sound patronising. You'll have heard of the hero's journey. You know, that's what Rocky is, and that's where we're potentially at now. Back in
Oh,
September last year, I've never been as low, and I've gone on my own
yeah.
little hero's journey. And Mark,
That's how I that's how I consider my current place. When people go, "Whereabouts are you?" I'm like, I'm at the part where my hero is just coming out of the deeper part, where he's like, I kind of found what I was looking for, and I've got to rebuild back up,
yeah,
but do it correctly.
because I mean, I also think, and you know, this is something we were going to touch on a little bit around the mindset and the setbacks and the comebacks. I think it's important to look at what you've achieved as well. You know, we started this podcast by talking about the fact you're almost at $1 billion in sales for your clients.
Yeah.
You know, just that stat alone would be enough to keep me going. You know, they're like, well, I've done this before. I can make myself £1,000. I'm all right. I can take care of my
Yeah.
food this month. You know, so I think
Yeah.
that's important. But even with yourself, you know, I've heard you speak before about the fact that you've got oh God, I get the two mixed up. Dyslexia.
Yes, and
Yes.
also, well, I've got ADHD and autism, so that's my two, but
No,
dyslexia
I
as
get
well.
dyslexia and anorexia mixed up, which are two very different things.
Very different
Um,
things. No, I don't have
yes.
anorexia, thankfully.
Um,
If you do,
but
my sympathy.
yes, definitely. But you've you've gone through that and dealt with that to become a copywriter, which is words, you
Yeah.
know. So you look at the challenges you've overcome already. I think that's massive. I think it's important to take a step back and look at the challenges you've already overcome.
Yeah, I think that's a big thing. That's something a friend of mine reminded me of. I'm very grateful you did as well, was to go back and look at my winventory, as we like to call it. Like, how many wins do you have in your inventory? It's a winventory. Um, Gamers for life, right? That's basically what we are. But thank you so much for sharing. And it's great advice, not just for me, but for anyone, really, because I 100% endorse that because it's true.
What advice would you give to someone that was struggling? Maybe they're a bit down on their luck and they're looking to get back on their feet and kick on.
Okay. 'Cause I've been there a few times. It's kind of I'll give you guys the basics because it's the one that I'm going back to practice the most. Practice the basics. And by the basics, it means, are you moving? Are you eating? Are you sleeping? If you're doing those three in a good amount, so if you're getting enough sleep at night, you're eating enough of the right food in the day, and you're moving enough, like go walk in a park, go sit by like some form of nature, any kind of nature, you'll feel a lot better. Like you just will. And I know this because I went to a place called Thornton Reservoir on Saturday. I got some really great photos by accident because a friend of mine loves photography. I just sat down and had a chill. I literally sat down for the first time in months. Actually, no months. In 2 months in the UK, that is months. 2 months in the UK, and just had a really good day where it was nice and warm and relaxed. Because prior to this, I was living on an island off the coast of Tanzania called Zanzibar, and basically surrounded by beaches all day long. So I was like, beach warmth, to like, oh, it's raining. Shit. But no, for the real, like the best advice I got given, bar your advice that you just gave me as well, was basically look at your inventory, look at the things that you're doing in your basics. Are you getting the basics down? Your food, your water, your rest, your movement, and your nature. Are you hitting those 5 areas? And if the answer is no, well, if you're not doing the basics, how can you say that anything is going to work? So go back to the basics. And exactly, just everything you said. Have a friend that you can talk to, journal a little bit. I would actually go a little bit esoteric here and tell you guys just start a gratitude journal. Like on your phone, literally every day, just have a note on your phone just called gratitude list, and every day you just update it with 5 new things. Like it could be the same thing that you write for 15 days in a row. Doesn't matter, but like just go ahead and keep adding to it. And I guarantee you'll see a result. You'll see a change. I mean, I'm living proof of that, of what it is. And sometimes life will invariably kick you in the balls. Just always remember that will sometimes happen, and it's okay to feel sad. But like you
Absolutely.
said, take time off. Sometimes you need a day where you just sit on your bed or sit on the sofa and just watch movies and play games and do nothing else all day long.
Yeah. Wholeheartedly agree. So just before we move on to the last couple of questions, is there anything else you'd like to cover today, do you think, on this podcast?
Oh, I'm all yours, buddy. So ask me away anything. We're all
Right. Well,
good.
let's finish then with the ultimate driving song. So I've got a Spotify playlist for the Instructor Podcast Spotify playlist. So what
Uh-huh.
song would you like to add?
Okay, the Eagles, Hotel California. If that's not on the list, that's a list. That's a song for the list. That I'm gonna give you guys two because there's one that has lyrics and one that doesn't. Um, the one that doesn't is Eclipse by Oko. So Eclipse by Sam, Cisco, and Oko, OKO. Those two songs. Very different. One's got lyrics, the other one is a very chilled out song. But they were really good for driving in.
Awesome. Well, Hotel California isn't in there. I got annoyed the other week because nobody had put on um, Wayward Son, Carry On Wayward Son by Kansas yet, so I just put it on myself. Like, I'm not
As you
waiting long
should.
enough. Yeah. Um,
Well, I was gonna say, I'm surprised Hotel California didn't make that list already, because like that right there would be like that's my first go-to song. I mean, I have other ones. Again, it all comes. I'm gonna waffle for a second. It all comes down to how you're driving. If you're having one of those days like I want to be a little bit of a racer, I just want to put my foot down. I'm going Wiz Khalifa Black and Yellow all day. Like that song is gonna come on, and I'm going.
well, I must admit, after today's conversation, I may add Eye of the Tiger and Flying High now. But there we go. So, do you just
Yes.
want to tell all my listeners where they can find you and if you've got any products or any services that they may find useful or beneficial?
Okay, yeah, sure. So I'm actually releasing an insight. So the big thing is I'm currently building and releasing my encyclopedia of copy, which is basically everything I know about every form of advertisement under the sun. So you can essentially, you don't have, so it's split into two parts. One is the teaching element, which is where I'll be like, and the psychology behind this and blah, 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 and this is why it works and yada, yada, yada. Then there's the other side, which is here's a 2 minute video that tells you exactly what you need to do on how to write a good headline. Here's how you come up with a good story. Here's how you do this. Here's how you do this. This is how you write emails. This is why this works. And it just shows you what to do with an example for you to copy and paste over. So that's still in the works right now. That's going to be a yearly $2,000 thing that I'm doing because you get a lot of access as well to like the products, but you also get access to me and all the updates. That's one. If you're into that, message me. Where you can find me, Instagram is at Adil Amarsi. It's the best way to find me because my Facebook is full and my Instagram is easiest to find me on because I do respond. The third is go to greatestcopywriteralive.com. Yes, I will claim that, though technically that is more about you guys than it is about me because it's me sharing my knowledge with you guys. And what I will be doing, please subscribe to that blog because there's a whole thing that I have on there on how to find your core story and how to use your core story to essentially get people to want to work with you in full form. So if you're a driving instructor, why did you become one? What really got you there? How do you like helping students? And it just builds up a really good content plan for you. And the other reason to subscribe to the website, besides the fact that I'm going to be writing some kick-ass emails, because we didn't even cover the Keanu method today, surprisingly. There's a video on the Keanu method on the site, greatestcopywriteralive.com. You guys can go check it out. I apologize for the dude shouting in the background. You'll get what I mean when you watch the video. And I swear to God, I think he did it just because I was recording. As soon as I finished recording, he stopped doing it. It was like really annoying. Anyway, I digress. But on the website, what you're going to see is services and products. Those aren't built out yet, but I'm going to eventually be building out bundles of my encyclopedia. So instead of paying the $2,000 a year, you can pay like a smaller fee for other things that you just might need. Or just reach out to me and say hello because I love talking to people. And if you're a driving instructor in around the Midlands, definitely hit me up. I may have some people for you.
Well, there you go. I will just say that when I watched the video, I did for a second think it may have been me in the background because there was a time last year when I did that. But then I realized it wasn't the same place, so it wasn't me. But that would have been a story.
No, that would have been quite funny. It's like, I remember this is like, no, some guy in the background was just yelling. He was just off the cliffs in Dar es Salaam where I'm doing this video. This asshole of a human being just like, what? It's like, what are you doing?
Well, as always, I will put those links in the show notes, and they will be there in the transcription blog when I eventually get round to getting caught up with those. But for now, I'm just left to say thank you for joining us today. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you for having me. Thanks so much, Harry. And hope you guys got a lot of fun out of this too.
So a big thank you to Adil there. Really enjoyed that conversation. his insights on copywriting and side of the business marketing side of it were fascinating for me. And I'm sure if you listen to that episode in Phil, you got a lot from it as well. But the good news is Adil has actually agreed to come back and do a special live Q&A with my premium members. He actually suggested that himself. So looking forward to setting that up to give my lovely premium members a chance to pick Adil's brains. And when he comes back, he'll actually have made over $1 billion in sales for his customers, which, as I said in the show, I can't comprehend those numbers, but I am going to tell you a little bit about what's coming up on the Instructor podcast. So we are running through for the rest of June and potentially just into July. We've got some road shows coming up around road safety and the standards check, and a couple of other awesome ones as well. But we've got some different things coming up too. So in August, I am hosting a Meganar, which is free for all driving instructors to attend and watch online. It's going to be over 3 hours with 9 different speakers covering a host of topics from very specific instructor stuff to maybe some things that you'll consider around the peripherals of our industry. But anyone is going to be welcome to sign up to that, and make sure you are following me on social media to keep updated with the dates and the speakers I announce them and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, that is a Meganar, not a webinar, a Meganar being available in August. In September, I am taking the Instructor podcast on the road again. We have been to Coventry for the expo. We have been to Kempton for the conference, and now we are working our way around the UK with a variety of different local associations. So if you would like the Instructor podcast to come and record live at one of your local associations, and drop me a message, and we may be able to arrange that in the future. And the last thing I want to mention around that is what's coming up on the expert sessions. So we have got, for the rest of the year, expert sessions planned with Dave Shannon talking about tax for driving instructors and what we can and can't claim for. Going to be talking to Ray Seagrave about building rapport and why it's so important. Neil Whiteman is going to be talking to us about safeguarding, and Phil Cowley is going to be giving us some top questioning techniques that we can use on driving lessons. And if you would like to sign up for the Instructor Podcast Premium, make sure you're heading to www.theinstructorpodcast.com. But for now, I'm just going to say thank you for listening today. I really do appreciate it, especially if you listened all the way to the end, because you are my favorite. And remember, if you're not enjoying your lessons, you're doing them wrong.
The Instructor Podcast with Terry Cook, talking with leaders, innovators, experts and game changers about what drives them.